The Longhorns just landed the #1 offensive tackle in the country. 5-star Brandon Baker, 6'4.5", 300 pounds. This is both a big get for the Longhorns in terms of impact and what it means for them, but also just a literal impact from Brandon Baker being a big human being. They got him from Modern Day in Southern California, and a program there. If you know high school football, there is a little bit of reputation that comes with Modern Day, with the prospects they've churned out over the years. There's a lot more to this we'll talk about. Really quickly, though, make sure you're subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. It's college football and only college football. We'll talk recruiting. We'll talk the games being played. We got analysis. We got predictions. All that you love about this game happens right here every single day, so make sure you're dialed in. We appreciate you in advance for that. So what does it mean for Texas from a football point of view, landing Brandon Baker? What does he bring to the table? Well, like I said, #1 offensive tackle in America, really high floor offensive tackle is one of the things that we love about him. We love his size, his wingspan. Like I said, he's monstrous at 6'4.5", 300 pounds. As a high school student, I promise you, when he gets to Texas, you would imagine that he will continue to develop physically. But the thing that I love about him, the fact that he's coming from a school like Modern Day, one, he's played against elite competition. Okay, so that they've played against the St. John Boscos, the Servites, the Orange Lutherans. Like, when you get to the Trinity League, or you get out of the Trinity League rather, and go to the collegiate level, there's not so much of a learning curve as there might be somewhere else. Also with Modern Day, that high school, with the resources they put into their athletics, like, they're going to develop their student athletes. And Brandon Baker, coming from that football team, is going to be well coached. Like I said, he's going to be well developed. There's a lot to like about his transition from the high school level to the collegiate level, coming from that space. So for Brandon Baker, on top of that, we got to sit down with him at the On3 NIL Elite Series here in Nashville. And before we got the interview started, first of all, like, we're sitting at this table, and you can imagine we're trying to fit ourselves into this shot, and he's an enormous human being. So we're like really, really close together, myself, Brandon Baker, and Josh Newberg. And so we're just looking at this dude like, man, like that measurement, sometimes roster measurements get ballooned up a little bit to make them sound bigger. That was not the case with Brandon Baker. So that's one. Second, the way that he asked about his On3 profile and was looking at the different rankings and where he stacked up, you could tell that this is a kid who is competitive in everything he does, and he wants to win at everything he does. And we go back to Texas adding good culture, adding players that are going to help be a part of Steve Sarkisian's culture and what they're building on the 40 acres. Like, it feels like this is a kid who's competitive and cares about winning. And so you would have to imagine at face value, that's going to be an addition to the roster, to the locker room, that you would want to have on the 40 acres. Now, from a macro level, Texas leaving for the SEC next year. We all understand that. You probably feel a little bit better about that as a Texas fan with what you did against Alabama. And to me, this class as a whole, right now, at the time of us recording this, I was going to say being live, we're not live till tomorrow. At the time of us recording this, they are in the top 11 in terms of the On3 industry team recruiting rankings. Okay, so I would be surprised personally if Steve Sarkisian doesn't make a push and they end up somewhere in that top 10 come National Signing Day. But the thing that's interesting is how they're building this class. Right now, they have 18 commits. 8 of those individuals are on the line of scrimmage, offensive or defensive. So they understand now, with this class they're adding to when they're going to the SEC, the way they're building their roster, there's an emphasis on being physical in the trenches. And you add a Brandon Baker, a 5-star offensive tackle, that's a really positive step in helping establish that identity. And we all understand this. In the SEC now, it means a little bit something extra. That's kind of the price of admission on the line of scrimmage. You can't expect to be competitive for SEC titles and make the college football playoff and all that if you don't have what it takes on the line of scrimmage. So Brandon Baker, another addition to that effort and to that identity that they're establishing at Texas. And the last thing I want to talk about here, I truly believe that Texas and the brand they have right now is different than it was a couple of years ago. And I don't know if the Texas of a couple of years ago has the brand power and has the trajectory to land a Brandon Baker. Because Brandon Baker, the reasons that he kind of summed it up for why Texas was right for him was development, atmosphere, trajectory. A couple of years ago, Texas wasn't seen as a place where you would go and develop. It was seen as a place where you would go and not really be heard from for a little bit. And that's not my words. That's other recruits kind of talking about it in that light. Brandon Baker is saying, no, I want to go to Texas because of how they develop offensive linemen, because of that coaching staff, because of what they've done. Trajectory of the program. Like, Texas has always had brand power. It's always been recognizable with the logo and the burnt orange and all that. It's always had a lot of shine to it. But to talk about the trajectory of the team and the trajectory of where they're headed under Steve Sarkisian, you can tell now. There's a different feel around Texas when it comes to how recruits view them than there was a couple of seasons ago. And they're 4-0 right now. You would have to imagine Texas beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa was probably a nice little feather in the cap and probably didn't hurt a lot of these recruitments. So the way that Texas is trending, I think, is a tremendous testament to what Steve Sarkisian's done in his time there and where he has them heading. And then a testament to that staff taking that juice and putting it on the recruiting trail and landing guys like Brandon Baker from Southern California, from a school like Mater Dei where they have great relationships. So, Brandon Baker, big human being, literally a big get metaphorically for Texas in terms of impact. This is a sign of the new Texas. This is a sign of Steve Sarkisian's Texas, and it will be a monstrous addition for them as they head to the SEC next year. We're live tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, as well as Wednesday and Thursday. Make sure you're dialed in. We're going to talk some ball and have a good time. So get in the live chat. Make sure you're subscribed and follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at JD Pickell. We'll let y'all know when we're going live and shoot you a link. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all, man. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.